For USCFootball.com, I'm Jack Smith alongside Chris Treviño for instant analysis for USC's Tuesday practice of Arizona State Week. And Chris, let's get right down to business. What were some of your biggest observations from practice today?
Well, you know we're going to start with the weather, Jack, and it is a beautiful day, probably the best day we've covered for USC practice, so right off the bat, that's amazing. And then I hope you can hear the mariachi band playing in the background over there, so Cilantro Boy, you're an honorary Cilantro Boy for this instant analysis. If you know, you know. But yes, road week, Arizona State. The first thing we noticed is actually the practice jerseys have swapped because you know they're going on the road. And the first just kind of big thing I noticed about practice in general was that there was a lot of energy, a lot of juice, especially when we saw the defense take the field and go against scout offense. They were hooping and hollering, a lot of energy. You know, they were going quick. So, you know, I think they're ready to play. You know, they took that bye week. It's an early bye week. We know they would have preferred it to be in the middle of the season, but they're ready, they're healthy, they're rested, and they're just itching to play a game again.
Well, and today was one of those days where we get to talk to Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch. Most of the time, you know, Riley is the story, but today it really was Alex Grinch. He was asked how the bye week helped the health at the linebacker positions, and he said it was very helpful to those guys. And then he was kind of asked point blank, do you expect to have Mason Cobb this weekend? And he says, yes, we expect to have Cobb this weekend. I got a chance to talk with Mason Cobb and say, kind of this is what Grinch said. Do you feel good? And he said he feels really healthy, fully ready to go on Saturday, and he was very excited to get a chance to go on the field after what he said would be 4 weeks from the last time he played come Saturday.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen Mason Cobb on the field. Obviously, he was one of our most important Trojans for this defense, but they have done well in, you know, maintaining the linebacker boat with Rajon Davis and Tackett Curtis, you know, getting those extended reps, getting valuable experience. So that the first half of the schedule lends itself, but they're going to need Mason Cobb, a veteran like that, for those back half schedules against Washington, on the road in Notre Dame, Oregon. You'll need a guy like that, Mason Cobb. So it's good to have him healthy and getting healthier, but just because they expect to have him available does not mean he's going to play. I need to stress that. Just because, you know, Cobb said he's feeling good, Alex Grinch said they expect him to have available for Saturday, does not mean he's going to play. And think about it, do you really need Mason Cobb to beat a banged-up Arizona State team that is going through so many injuries against the offensive line and against their quarterbacks? Probably not. Maybe you'll get him in there for a couple reps just to get that rust off. But again, just because he's available does not mean he's going to start or anything like that.
Yeah, he hasn't played since the San Jose State game, which he kind of said it's been weird because he had never missed college games before, but also the fact that we haven't spoken to him since the San Jose State game, and now we got a chance to talk to both him and Eric Gentry, who we'll talk about in a second. That is definitely something that is newsworthy. Kind of asked him a couple more questions, what his perspective was of the defense watching from the sidelines, and he said he thought they looked nasty. He said he was yawning during the Stanford game because he was like, this game's going so slow, we're up by so much. And then they also asked him about going on the road, you know, his kind of perspective on road games and home games. He says, man, I really don't even like home games that much. There's too many people that know me there. He likes going on the road because they think we're villains, and he says, I like being the bad guy. So that's kind of what you want from your middle linebacker, is a guy that wants to go out there and be that bad guy. Mason Cobb has been impressed with the defense, and he's really excited to get a chance to not only play in a road game, but to be back in a game for the first time since week 1.
Yeah, you love USC putting on that villain mask when they go on the road. That was something, you know, they kind of adopted last season. Obviously, things got rough at the end of the year, but going on the road, that was the thing they relished and loved doing. It was us against them mentality, us against the world mentality, and that defense really embraced that, especially with the Oregon State game. And Eric Gentry even mentioned the Oregon State game, like those were the most fun games to play in. So I know Arizona State is not a world beater or a super dangerous team, but still it's important to get that road game atmosphere under their belt against Arizona State. Night game when you have some big games looming further down. Colorado we know is going to be sold out, so getting that first road game under their belt is very key, and yeah, we'll see how much they are the villains this weekend.
Well, Gentry is another one of those linebackers that was banged up. Like Cobb, also didn't play for the Nevada game. He's gotten back into some games, but obviously not to, I think, the amount that USC fans expect him to when he is fully healthy. But we got a chance to talk to him again for the first time since that first week, and you were in that. What were some of your biggest takeaways?
Eric Gentry, as you know, an Arizona State transfer, so this is a homecoming game for him. He obviously played against the Sun Devils last season, but this will be his first time going back to Tempe to face them. And he was asked, you know, have you really thought about it that much? He's like, to be honest, I haven't really thought about it that much, you know, going back there. A lot of people have changed from the time he was there, which is kind of the similar effect that Austin Jones talked about when he played Stanford. But he echoed kind of the same thing that Mason Cobb echoed about how much he loves road games, more so than home games, because on the road, they get to be the villains, yes, but they're so much more memorable. That's what he said. He said they're so much more memorable. Benny Wiley told him that the road games are the best games because you make the best memories there. You know, going to someone else's stadium, taking a win from them. Oregon State game last year, as we all know. So he's really excited. You could tell on his face that he is really excited. And I asked him, you know, has this week felt different knowing that you're going on the road? He said initially not really, but then he just added, you know, we're all really excited to play on the road. So yeah, based on what I saw in practice, as I mentioned, they were juiced up. The defense was especially. So I think this defense is ready to go knock some heads at Tempe.
Yeah, everyone says you need energy to go on the road, especially after coming off of a bye week. And we asked Mason Cobb, how do you feel about the energy these first couple days back at practice? And he said, first of all, for him, he's got a lot of energy just because he's excited to be back on the field, feeling fully healthy, kind of rejuvenated after the bye. But he said that the defense really needs to go out there and show as much energy as they have against Arizona State, and he feels like they've been doing that so far in practice. So energy, clearly something that Lincoln Riley wants to see from the team, and the players have seen the first couple days through practice. But that's something that I think we'll see USC focus on for the rest of the week. We also asked about, it's different going on the road, different coming out of a bye week. We asked about whether it's going to be different for USC to play Arizona State, not knowing maybe what quarterback they're going to play, not knowing who's going to be calling the offensive plays, and kind of the players and the coaches were quick to shut that down.
Right, because, that is the big question, like who is going to start for Arizona State. We just don't truly know. It seems like they have a new serious injury every day in practice, but, Grinch equated it kind of like the opener. You didn't really know. Well, you kind of knew it was going to start, but you just have to go. You don't really have based on film to practice off of and study. So you just kind of go with the tendencies that this offense has, and they're obviously very familiar. Lincoln Riley talked about them. They're familiar with that. Kenny Dillingham and his offense, and their defensive coordinator, guys who both played in the Pac-12 or coached in the Pac-12. So their systems, their tendencies. You have film that you can look out. You might not necessarily know the personnel or who's actually going to be starting come game time, but you can still obviously do a lot, work a lot. They've had 2 weeks to kind of work on Arizona State, despite not really knowing who's going to start in the center or be in the starting lineup. So, again, it's Arizona State. They are not taking them lightly, though. Lincoln Riley did say, there are great coaches over there. They're good coaches, and he knows what's the word I'm looking for? Just when you start a program, he's been there, where you start over its program, and it's really hard to get that program off the ground. And obviously when you're going through entries and stuff like that, he says you're closer than you think, and he thinks Arizona's going to be good by the end of the season, or, they're a lot better than people are telling that they are right now, just because you can't really judge them because they have no quarterbacks, they have no offensive linemen. So we'll see what they look like in a couple of weeks. But yeah, they're not going to obviously get their best foot from Arizona because they are so banged up. But yeah, he says they're good coaches over there, and they're going to have some stuff to throw at them on Saturday. He expects that.
He basically said, like, every coach has been there at some point in their career, and he says, basically, if you're coaching at Arizona State, you're a pretty good coach, and you've obviously done a pretty good job the previous places you've been. And he was asked yesterday about it on the Trojans live radio show. Kenny Dillingham being the youngest coach in college football at 33 right now. That's what Lincoln Riley, that's his age when he took over at Oklahoma, and he was the youngest coach. So, he's been asked a lot of questions about Dillingham and that coaching staff, but they were saying their prep isn't going to change much, and Mason Cobb kind of echoed the same thing. He says, no matter which quarterback they have out there, no matter who's calling the plays, their offense probably isn't going to change a whole lot. And he said there have been specific things they've been working on. He thinks the run game, the play at running back has looked good for Arizona State, and he said the defense has really been working on securing their play against the Wildcat offense and prepping against that. So there's clearly things that USC is expecting, but just because you're going to get a different quarterback, maybe you don't know which quarterback you're going to get, they're not, I guess, like backing off and really having to think very hard about what to prepare for. They're preparing for Arizona State. They think it's going to look the same no matter who's at quarterback or who's calling the plays.
I just want to say the word I was thinking of was empathize.
I was going to say empathetic. There you go.
Empathetic towards Dillingham in his first year as a head coach.
I forgot to point the mic at you, but it works out. So we've got the mariachi band. We had the great weather. Were there any other small things you wanted to talk about for practice?
The big thing, obviously, is that there are a lot of young guys who will be making their first time on the road. This will be their first road environment. So I asked Eric Gentry, hey, what advice are you giving to those young guys? And he laughed and he said, I was just talking about this today. He told them there's going to be a lot of distractions. Look, there's going to be a lot of distractions, whether it's opposing players talking trash on social media, opposing fans, try to get into your head. You're in a stadium you're not really familiar with. You're in probably a crappy locker room. You have fans yelling at you. You have all these things. You're traveling. So many things to prepare about. You just got to tune all that out. You just got to tune all that out and lean on your team. That's what you're there for. That's who you're there with. It's them. It's you against them. Us against the world, what I mentioned earlier. And he also kind of, mentioned that they're just really excited to get this going. And yeah, I mean, the young guys could be crucial to this, and they could get a lot of time because we know that this could be a blowout win. We will see how the results go. But Eric Gentry said, when you get in, and you might not get a lot of time on the road, and it's different from home. If you get in for 5 plays, you have to make those 5 plays count. You have to do your best to make an impact on those 5 plays, because you're not going to get a ton of opportunities on the road. So make those plays count for the young guys who will get some opportunity to play in an opposing stadium, which is valuable experience. And the other thing I asked, because Lincoln Riley gave them off Friday through Sunday, gave them some time off, I asked Eric Gentry, hey, coaches gave you off. Were you taking some time to decompress from football, not really worried about football? He was like, no. That's not what the pros do around here. So he was very locked in still with football. He still grinded out. He even said the linebackers had a meeting. They all met together and they had a talk about, expectations moving forward and all that. So they were still thinking about football even when they had the weekend off.
Well, I think the coaches and the players don't really like to look ahead, but this is certainly USC's first road game. It won't be their, most hostile road environment. Really, you can look to a week from now where they're going to have to go to Colorado, and you're talking about opposing fans talking trash, opposing teams talking trash, some different personal things that might go on. Colorado's had a lot of that through their season so far. You're going to get that in Oregon and at Notre Dame. You're going to get a little bit of it at Cal as well. So USC is definitely going to have to learn from this week, and especially for that game against Colorado, which I think everyone's expecting that one to be a good one. We'll see what happens with Colorado and Oregon this week, and I'm sure we'll talk more about it on Tunnel Vision. But right now, USC has Arizona State, and it seems like they're prepared pretty well, and they're excited to go on the road, which I think fans will love to hear. But anyways, that's all we've got for you guys today. All the interviews from today are on YouTube here on Inside Troy. You can go to the website, uscfootball.com, to make sure to read all the articles. But anyways, for Chris Treviño, I'm Jack Smith. Check out uscfootball.com for more.